This is DIY Cyber Guy with David W. Schrofer. Every week, he will show you how cybersecurity can be as easy as locking up your house at night. Now, here is your host, David W. Schrofer.
Welcome back, everybody, to DIY Cyber Guy. This is episode 75, using AI in cybersecurity, best practices for small and medium businesses. This is a hair on fire 4 out of 5, which is higher than my typical podcast. The reason I'm doing that is because the ability to save money and improve your cybersecurity posture, especially for small and medium businesses, is a reality with AI if you know how to use it, if you know what to use it for. So that's what we're talking about. And this applies to everybody that is in any way in charge of a network. If people look to you to reset Wi-Fi, then you're the person who's also responsible for keeping that Wi-Fi system safe, the network behind it safe, the laptops attached to it safe. So here's the background. In a recent article from Cybersecurity News, they highlighted how security teams are moving away from the overhyped AI promises and toward high-impact targeted applications of AI, especially in cloud-native environments. So that's speaking to you if you are using a lot of SaaS products, like software as a service, platform as a service for your accounting, HR, and maybe even doing other work like documents, et cetera, in the cloud, of course, email. So what we're seeing now is organizations are prioritizing use case that reduce alert fatigue, that reduce triage fatigue, accelerate triage, accelerate responses. Those are all the key things that big security teams do. But the best practice that we're seeing, and that's just detailed in this article, which we will put the link to in the show notes, it's not a replacement for security teams. It's more like a co-pilot. It's not an autopilot. It's something to use as a first opinion or second opinion before you bring in the expert. Speaking of experts, my guest today is Jimmy Mesta. He's the co-founder and head of research at Rad Security, which is a company delivering AI native detection, investigation, and response for security teams. Welcome, Jimmy.
Thanks for having me, David. Pleasure to be here.
Glad to have you on the show. So let's jump in. AI for cybersecurity, is that just for big businesses, or is there something really for small and medium businesses to do with this technology also?
Yeah, I mean, I think AI is for everyone, every business, no matter the size or shape. Businesses rely on making money at the end of the day, so you have to protect your intellectual property. You have to look at who's after you from a risk perspective, an attacker standpoint, and that doesn't really discriminate from large, medium, or small businesses. And AI can help level up any of those organizations. Now, it'll depend on, if you have a big business, you have bigger problems potentially, but you also might have more budget, so you might use AI differently. It's for everyone, maybe even more so when you have the single person or one or two people who are tasked with doing everything, right? That person's usually spread pretty thin, doesn't necessarily have all the domain expertise they need, and things come at you fast. So I think using AI can act as that sort of force multiplier, if you will, and really add more to your team than you don't have budget to hire for, and that's great. And then on the attacker front, there's also what we call the sort of spray and pray tactic, right? Where your attacks are targeting whoever, sort of locking up a network, demanding cryptocurrency, ransomware. No one's discriminating against that, right? It's actually easier to target a smaller business and demand, they can afford 10 grand potentially, they're not asking for millions, but, do that 100 times and that's a good business on the attacker front. So these are things that I think AI can help with. It's not going to fortify your network and prevent these things necessarily, but it can at least make you more effective in the fight.
Okay, so AI can make you more effective in the fight. Let's talk about some use cases for that. Let's pick a category. Maybe let's start with phishing. So in the spray and pray example, threat actors, are just getting increasingly capable of sending lots and lots of emails to random target audiences waiting for somebody to click a link, that type of thing. Can you give an example of how AI, what kind of AI systems can be used to counterbalance a phishing attack or protect against a phishing attack, and maybe some examples of what those tools are?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. The phishing is almost, 9 times out of 10 the gateway into the network onto a machine, and it's a problem at the largest enterprises in the world also, right? It just gets a little more sophisticated.
Right.
The What AI is pretty good at, and without needing to really purchase much, is analyzing sentiment, or using its massive corpus of data that it's trained on to look at patterns and misspellings and punctuation, embedded encoding, these things that humans have a hard time picking up on, as we know,
Okay.
because we fall for phishing all the time. AI can, a properly prompted, chat GPT 4.0 prompt could help you stop phishing. Then level two to that would be kind of plugging in purpose-built tools, right, for phishing detection that leverage AI. Maybe there's some commercial offerings you could use, or build, an extension yourself. There's quite a bit there, but this day and age, it's pretty important to double check any message that's coming in to, especially to like a CEO, someone who's busy running around. I mean, we see it all the time, and no one thinks they're going to fall for it, but it happens, because yeah, it's that's human nature. So AI can act as that co-pilot for us.
Okay, you said that a simple Chat GPT 4.0 prompt can help you with things like analyzing whether or not the diction, the spelling of an incoming email indicates that it might be spam, it might be malicious, or if perhaps if it's legitimate.
Mhm.
Can you give me an example of what that prompt might look like? And let's assume that the listener doesn't know how to automate an API or write a script that can easily do that type of thing. What are they looking for? How do you use it specifically for that use case?
Sure. Yeah. I could talk through an example.
Yeah.
Out of the gate, the most prompts, especially when you're talking about cybersecurity, and this could be, you know, detecting nation state attacks, whatever it may be.
Hmm.
Most prompts are structured around building a persona. So you got to let them know. You have to let ChatGPT know who it is, right? So giving that context first, saying, you are the world's foremost expert in detecting phishing, and every time you detect it accurately, you get $10,000, right? You could even go as far as having these like little bounties you can add, um, to really, have it, think deeply and recheck its work.
And
And
excuse me,
yeah,
I don't mean to interrupt. Are you talking
yeah,
like
yeah, go ahead.
An AI bounty, like this artificial reward
Yeah,
sort of
you
thing?
just you give it a carrot.
Sure.
We do it all the time.
Really?
Yeah,
In
yeah.
in the goal
In the
sampling,
prompt.
when you're
Mhm.
telling AI what its ultimate goal is.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
Um,
fascinating.
yeah, you get it to just try I mean, I guess even the AI overlords are motivated by money, I guess. But and you give it that persona, and you could save this prompt. I mean, you could save the prompt and use it later, and then you essentially will paste in, where it came from, right? This was a message that came through text. This is an email. Here's the sender. Ideally, if you were actually investigating an email, you would give like the full context with all the SPF records, and you would kind of dump out the raw output so the true sender, not just maybe like a masked sender. And then you would want to have some sort of structured response. So at the end, you could say, tell me, with I always like to include confidence scores in my,
Okay.
at least when you're doing security. So you want the prompt to include the instruction to give a confidence score, because all the models are overly confident. They'll tell you anything you want to hear sometimes.
Right.
So it's good to have them double check and say, no, you have to give me a score, ranging from 0 to 100 on how confident you are that this is phishing. And then you'll get a decent result, right?
All right, so let me boil that
My
down into
process.
sort of
Yeah.
a potential step by step, and stop me if this is wrong. And this should be exactly what you just said. So step one would be to, let's say you wanted to sample a few emails, just to make sure that incoming emails aren't filled with malware or something else that's bad. You want to make sure the incoming emails are legitimate. So you pick a sample. Step one would be to go to the raw source of that email. So you get the header information and the content of the email and any links in basically HTML format and code format. Copy that whole body, which will be about 70 times as long as the message. The message may be, hey, do you want to go to lunch? But the header might legitimately be 3 or 4 pages. That's common. That's normal. So you
Yeah.
copy that whole body, and then you write a message to in ChatGPT 4.0 or whatever, Gemini, whatever you prefer to use. And
Yep.
you say, on a scale of 1 to 100, how confident are you that this email is legitimate? And then you just paste that bulk data that you got from the raw source of the email. Did I miss anything?
Yeah. Yeah. That's about it. It really could be that simple to at least get to some resolution, right?
Right.
The Where that falls short is it's pretty manual.
Yeah.
So you'd want to look into ways, if you're taking this, little to the next level, to make it more automated.
Okay. And most of the people listening to this podcast, the people that are responsible for keeping the green light on the Wi-Fi system, there's still somebody that you call the IT professional. Maybe it's outsourced, or somebody at corporate headquarters or something that you can call when you need to do something that's out of your depth. What kind of question can a business owner ask of their IT, and I'll just say limited IT resource, to get them to pay attention to AI from a cost saving perspective? In other words, how does anything change about the communication between the executive, the business owner, and their tech support when it comes to using AI in exactly the type of example that we just talked about, checking emails, for example, manually? How do you get the IT person to automate that or to make it part of their daily practice?
Yeah, I think there's quite a few opportunities for cost savings. I mean, one is, on one end is can can the company who has a question just ask a pre-trained AI model that has all of your corporate docs, your configuration, it knows about your company, right? And that's all becoming very real, even in like the chat GPT realm. And we see tools like, for bigger enterprises like Glean, that do that with corporate documents, videos, transcribing, all the corpus of internal stuff that we built. And you could just ask the LLM to essentially answer the question with your data, so you don't even have to ask the IT person.
Right.
That's one end of the spectrum. The other is, you can build AI agents pretty easily these days. If you're in IT, you're probably using terminal tools and kind of administering and debugging all these different systems. So things like Claude Code can really like supercharge your workflow. It can connect to ticketing systems. It can kind of scope out the work. It can be, self-aware of, your Wi-Fi router configs, your, whatever kind of corporate IT endpoints that you have. And it can really help make that one IT person turn into more, 2 or 5 or however, I don't have a number, but it can definitely
Sure.
amplify their reach. And you can run some of these tasks in the background. And then you can start laying on sort of, simple security observability automation tasks where, like, if you see a new device join the network, send a message to Slack with all the information, and then tell me about it.
Right.
Use the LLM to look up the IP address. You start building these automation loops, and all of a sudden you're buying less products that you had, traditionally would have to maybe like buy some commercial tool for that, or like wrangle with open source.
Right.
And you're kind of automating your job, and you become an orchestrator of these agents, and you can really extend your reach there.
In a perfect world, let's say a small business owner starts to adopt some of these best practices. And while I wouldn't necessarily expect our audience to be able to write the kinds of scripts and automation tools that you're describing, you started by saying they're not that hard to do if you have some experience writing scripts and writing APIs and writing simple programs that automate processes, kind of what computers are here for. Let's say a small business owner adopts all of that consistently. What would a best case scenario be in terms of reduction in security costs and reduction in the vulnerability of their network?
A best case scenario, like a more of like a dollar amount, or just
Both. I mean, a dollar amount or percentage of, if their costs
yeah.
were $20,000 a year, would it become, is it possible that it becomes five with a little work and challenging some people to use AI and challenging them to write some scripts to automate some things, or at least be the first take on some, incoming traffic, that type of thing?
Yeah. I mean, I think it depends largely on how hard the organization pushes AI, right? And I say that
Right.
because yes, you can have some incremental gains by saying casually, hey, everyone should try this out, right? You're not going to see crazy slashes in cost reduction through the, kind of like using ChatGPT and exploring some of these other tools just like at the surface. But if you're serious about it, and you're kind of believe that this is, you're up against something that can actually move the needle in our business, whether that's saving money or just keeping things steady state and getting more done, which is kind of two different sides of the coin. I think there's a 2x, within 6 months, you could be looking at like a 2x increase in productivity, if that's your goal, right? If you're just trying to cut costs, that might be a little harder to quantify without knowing what those are, but that's possible.
Yeah.
But I look at AI as a greenfield productivity boosting mechanism versus like a pure cost cutting exercise. Because I think people want to get more done. They want to make more sales. They want to onboard more customers. Everyone's got a backlog, and they're trying to chip away at that faster. And AIs can help with that.
So if I'm thinking like a CEO, what you just described is a combination of, I mean, making employees, giving them the tools to be more efficient is what we do, right? We give them a laptop so they don't have to write on pencil and paper. We give them a telephone so they don't have to shout out the window at their clients, and we give
Yeah.
them AI tools to take away some of the other types of tasks, including the training. So you're really talking about making an employee body more efficient, using AI to help train them on AI, for example. And the expectation would be, that same person would get more done. And over the long term and the macro view is maybe you need fewer people to do the same job for a
Yeah.
given company. And that's that's a bad thing for the overall employability of most of America. And that's a good thing for the company, the owner of the company. But
Yeah.
efficiency is efficiency, however you slice it, right? So,
Yeah.
so is that a fairly accurate statement? You're making people
I,
more
I
efficient.
I think so. Yeah. Just a brief example, like let's say you run a company that you're onboarding a lot of part-time employees, right? And onboarding is always a
Time
pain.
consuming,
So it's
expensive.
time
Oh,
consuming.
pain. Yeah, that's a good, that's a
Yeah,
good
I
umbrella.
mean, there's some arbitrary checklist that somebody built. Hopefully it's accurate. And each employee needs, these 15 things, systems that need to be set up. Maybe they're in chat, maybe they need a telephone number, whatever the steps are. Um, that's still probably done pretty manually, and it can take forever. It's error prone. And if you're churning employees a lot, just for example, like it's just a waste of time.
Yeah.
So like an AI automation workflow could easily be, employee starts, HR enters some basic information, and it kicks off a number of different steps that, goes and creates certain accounts, gives you, a phone number, it assigns you in the CRM, adds you to this Slack channel. It gives you this like welcome message and a place to answer questions, and like there's no human intervention at all. And I think that's not just an AI thing, that you can add AI to that to make it even better, but automation like that opens the door for IT to work on. Maybe there's some big network upgrade that they need to actually put brain power into, and like
Mm-hmm.
this sort of onboarding stuff is not where you want your highest paid out of the bunch working on.
Okay. Before my next question, I want to tell my listeners that Rad Security is not a sponsor. That's not why you're here, is to promote Rad Security. But I am curious about Rad Security's model here, because
Mhm.
you're in right in the first line of the description of the company is the use of AI, agentic AI, meaning AI that can make decisions and then act on those decisions. So how does Rad Security work, and what benefit would a small and medium business or even a larger business get from contacting Rad Security to do what you do?
Yeah, so I mean, like our product is geared towards more of that upper mid market account, or enterprise account sort of environment, where you have a security team, you have a SecOps team, a CISO, you're building software, et cetera. But the fundamentals still are pretty much can be applied anywhere. The What we do is we take, our big vision is to kind of like agentify cloud security. So when you're using platforms like AWS, GCP, Azure, building software, uh, complexity is everything. I mean, it's a very hard environment to kind of get to the root of problems and security issues and vulnerabilities, what matters, what doesn't matter. So
Okay.
we've built LLM based, agent based workflows that are really good at understanding and distilling all of that and automating those tasks that 10-person SOC team would typically take on, and then giving you that in really like an AI native way. And we're trying to save security teams time, and making them more effective, just similar to the ideas we were talking about earlier with IT teams.
So if a listener to this podcast doesn't, reaches out to you, gets a quote, it's more than they can afford. Is there merit to that same company asking their IT team, whatever their managed service provider or their managed security services provider, to reach out to you or to employ some of the things that you employ to, as you said, to make the process more efficient?
Yeah, we would probably help the managed security, yeah, the MSP itself, the managed security provider, in their effort to make their customers more successful. Yeah, we wouldn't necessarily be working with a small business directly, but we could really help the MSP bring new features to life and things like that.
Okay, so a couple of key takeaways could be, one, if there's a do-it-yourself interest in a listener, they can do some simple practices like copying the raw data from an email, checking a sample to see if there's an issue. They could also contact their MSP or MSSP and ask if they're using either Rat Security or they're using a product like Rat Security that that employs AI to make cybersecurity more efficient, to make checks easier, to make scanning a lot easier and a lot more productive over time. Is that about right?
Mhm. That's
All
about
right.
right. Yeah, you got it.
Fantastic. Jimmy, I'm thrilled that you were able to be on the podcast today. You were the exact right person to talk about this topic. I hope my listeners got a lot from it. Where can people find out more about what you do?
Yeah, so you could check out radsecurity.ai.
Okay.
And that is our that's there's a lot going on there, but we also have a blog that's at radsecurity.ai/blog. Um, I'm in there writing a bunch. The team's also doing it. We're mostly talking about using AI and RAG and agentic workflows to help security teams. And then you can, if you want to connect with me directly, LinkedIn's a great place to do that. I'm fairly active on there, so you could find me on LinkedIn really easily. And I think you have my link, so that'll be probably be in the show notes.
Excellent. It'll be in the show notes. Both of those links will be in the show notes. All right, Jimmy, great to have you on the show. Thanks very much for being here.
Thank you, David.
That's all the time we have today. Remember, for the show notes from this episode, or to listen to any of our past episodes, or to get a free chapter from my book, Digital Habits, just go to DIYCyberGuy.com. And if you want to buy my book, just go to Amazon.com or BarnesandNoble.com and search the keywords Digital Habits 5 Simple Tips. If you have questions or an idea for the show, just email me at questions@DIYCyberGuy.com. And if this show helps you stay safe online, please click the share button and send it to everyone you think we can help. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to DIY Cyber Guy. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this broadcast are for general information only, and we have not knowingly divulged any information that would conflict with any of our non-disclosure or confidentiality agreements. Enjoy the internet safely.